Nigerian Air Force drone has bombarded a Boko Haram artillery gun and gun trucks in Peresua location in the Sambisa.
All right, a video released by the Air Force spokesman shows the attack on the equipment after a surveillance aircraft and the drone trailed the insurgents who were reportedly returning from a field attack. Now, the Air Force says fireballs created by the bombardment and the explosions killed the operators of the equipment and those around.
Security forces are stepping up attacks on Boko Haram locations in the Sambisa in an operation codenamed Deep Punch. And joining us now in the studio is a public affairs analyst, Bala Zaka. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you.
Yes. How important is this operation really to rout Boko Haram members completely from that forest?
Well, psychologically, it's encouraging. It's something positive. And like you said, it's been coded Deep Punch. Mm-hmm. Some of us will appreciate it if we see something like getting to the marrows. You know, because we just have to root this terrorist out of Nigeria. It's necessary that we get them out, and it's necessary that we get to the point where we will start what we call generational cleansing, psychological cleansing, and reposition a given generation of Nigerians, maybe after myself, after yourself, to come up and lead Nigeria in the direction that we want. But it's just necessary. Everything about the operation has been encouraging. And I'm happy also that Nigerians are now appreciating what our military and security agencies are going through. I'm seeing less of probably zero criticism now, which is okay. From time to time also we have cases where we will see something shaky like underperformance, but instead of criticizing, we encourage, which is positive.
Now, but anytime the military carries out an operation with the Air Force, operation this or operation that and all of that, they come out very successful. But we know that the Sambisa forest, the dreaded Sambisa forest, the terrorists are hiding. It's part of their enclave, as the case may be. But Nigerians are asking, why is it always a one-off kind of? Why not keep this momentum on? Like we have the Operation Lafia Dole that has been on all the while.
Yes.
Now, you launch Operation Deep Punch 1 and then 2, and then you achieve a success, and then you withdraw. And you dismantle the operation to wait for another operation, something again, and all of that. You
know, when you talk about security strategies, not necessarily military strategies, you know, there are certain things you can't really explain unless you are within the system. And even when you want some discussions made public, you know, you are made to understand that certain things cannot be divulged, you know. And based on that, personally, I won't be surprised if it is a security strategy. And we're hearing about this probably because of the level of success. And we shouldn't forget that there was a time when the security agencies, if I may use that word, were going through difficulties. You know, they had their own internal difficulties, and they also had support concerns. Before now, we were always talking about also traitors. You know, internal traitors and the rest.
Them.
Yes, and it's possible that some of those betrayers and the rest necessitated the redesign of the strategy. But the summary of everything today is that we are making progress, we are succeeding. You know, the days when these terrorists will leave, you know, their enclaves within Sambisa forest, then and come to Gulag, come to Madagali, Limankara, and all these places, you know, are over. Before now, what they do is they literally walk into some of these communities, you know, collect as many things as they can collect, burn villages, you know, cause destructions. Before now, what they do is they will leave Sambisa forest, get to places like Bama, Konduga, even come to the express roads, you know, cause mayhem and go back. But it's like everything is like they are being caged, they are being caged, they are being caged, so day in, day out, the radius of that territory is shrinking. Okay. That's the right word. So when you look at it from that angle, I think I will personally leave it as it's a security strategy, you know, not necessarily military, because when you say security, it encompasses everybody. Absolutely. It's a security strategy, and with time, after the success, they will tell us why they adopted these strategies. But personally, from the way I look at things, we are making progress.
Absolutely. Okay. And yes, I like the fact that you said that they are making progress this time around, because it's not like they were not making efforts in the past. It's just, like you said, they were up to so many challenges.
We've been talking about the Air Force operations in the Northeast, Deep and it's codenamed the Deep Punch, Deep Punch 2. Deep Punch 2, because the Deep Punch 1 was earlier on, and this is Deep Punch 2, and they have recorded successes, certainly from the reports we get in there. Now, Bala, let me come to you on this. When it comes to combat, the Nigerian Army is said to be one of the best on the African continent.
The credentials are there.
When it comes to combat.
The credentials are there.
Yes. But fighting Boko Haram is not that kind of military offensive, because they say it's a fight against their ideology, they are faceless people, it's an unconventional war. Yes. But when there is a territory called Sambisa Forest, you already know that this is the enclave of these people. I wonder how difficult or challenging it is for Nigeria to deploy that combat tactic or combat side of them.
Ground offensive.
Exactly, ground offensive in the Sambisa, in sweeping Sambisa Forest.
I think principally, like I said, it's a collection of security strategies, you know, but I think we have always been trying to be conscious of what we call collateral damage, you know. And when you talk about collateral damage, you actually, it's a case of, always there is this example that, you know, you have a bone here. It's something you cannot swallow it and let it go in so that you excrete it, and you cannot throw it out. You cannot vomit it out. It's just there, you know. I think that's the kind of case we have, because we've had cases where we also see some of our people, you know, held hostage. So I want to believe that, I mean, within the security confines, there is that consciousness. If we can just get that lady alive, that boy alive, you never can tell. That's the potential a commissioner, a potential president, or potential first lady. And that we've always been very, very conscious of that. It's more of a case of, in fact, the key thing is, in fact, after the operations of wiping these guys away, there is a need for us to set up or come up with an ideology and a new way of thinking that of this never, never, and never again. Within us Nigerians, you know, within the territory called Nigerians, you know, we allow monsters, you know, to start from an embryonic level and got to the point where everything was getting Nigeria almost destroyed, or a given flank of the country destroyed.
I wonder what the National Retention Agency is doing, because it's supposed to be some kind of, it's purview, because when you talk about not allowing such things to happen, you know, letting people understand that this is not right, an agency has a duty to carry that out. But when you talk about killing the ideology, yes. I know the government has a program in place, but for ex-Boko Haram members, the DRR program, de-radicalization, rehabilitation, yes. and then reintegration into the yes. society. That is ongoing. In fact, about 93 ex-Boko Haram men will be reintegrated pretty soon back to their community. Now, talking about the offensive and then the challenge of not wanting to bombard Sambisa Forest forcefully because of collateral damage. That is where the problem lies, really, because no matter the offensive, analysts would tell you, security analysts would tell you that no matter the offensive, no matter the ground offensive, yes, that could happen. And that, if you're conscious of it, it means that even if you kill almost all the members of the militant group, if just one of them survives
like a cancer cell.
It's like a cancer cell. It will grow again because it is an ideology.
Correct.
And that is the problem.
Yes. But you see, this is slightly or reasonably beyond National Orientation Agency, as far as I'm concerned. You see, when you talk about National Orientation Agency, you're talking about social standards, you know, across the strata of Nigeria. Hate speeches, you know, irresponsible dressing, you know, patriotism and things like that. That is, to me, National Orientation Agency's, you know, responsibility. But this one, like we said, is an ideology. It started negatively in an embryonic manner or from an embryonic stage and got to this level. And remember, the intention has always been to make our country lawless, to render our leaders powerless and irrelevant, and if necessary, this is the key point now, if necessary, let everything about Nigeria be destroyed. You see, when you are dealing with somebody who thinks like that, that person has signed his or her death warrant. But on your own case as Nigeria, you want to salvage as much or as many as you can salvage. So when you are dealing with people like that, it's really a difficult thing. Routing them, it's going to take time. But the good thing is this, like we have all arrived at a congruency on, is that the enclave is shrinking. It's definitely shrinking. But one lesson we must take after now is that something like this must never happen. We should be in control of the generations of everything. Whether you talk about human capital endowment, whether you talk about our mineral resources, whether you talk about our idle lands, we should be able to know. Because at some point, you know, people were living in Sambisa forest, you know. But the question is, how on earth, within the geographical entity called Nigeria, how did this breed of human beings, whether they are Nigerians or mixed, how did this breed grow and
to thrive so much?
Yes, and got so thick to that point. So that will be a lesson. And I learned that in secondary schools these days, there is a subject called civic education. I don't know if that one has to just do about morals, but something that has to take care of ideology is necessary, because it's purely based on ideology. And one unfortunate thing about ideology is this: no matter how weak the person physically looks, unless you kill him, just like a snake, unless you cut off the head and that person ceases to exist, that ideology can regrow back. And that's what we have to look at.
All right, we know at the inception of this government, there was a multinational joint task force put in place that comprised Nigeria, Niger, Chad, Cameroon, and even Benin Republic volunteered to be part of it. I wonder how relevant that outfit is right now when we don't hear of what they're doing, and sometimes we hear of cross-border attacks here and there. You know, when this Boko... I want to, personally, something tells me that Boko Haram took Nigeria by surprise. Unlike the Maitasine days, you know, during the Maitasine days, you know, somehow, somewhere, I think the present head of state, you know, was able to just go. He bombarded and he was able to bullhead them to a stop. But I think the one of Boko Haram took Nigerians by surprise. And it was because it was a homegrown terrorism, or there was a collaboration. And before we knew what was happening, it was almost, they were almost part of us. Because when you hear about the Mohammed Yusuf and everybody, the guy got schooled in Nigeria, went to normal schools and had friends across. And even when they started, they had sympathizers, unlike the days of Maitasine. Maitasine just came and Nigerians were not going to accept that. And the military went. But in this case, initially they even had supporters, you know, until everybody now discovered that if we allow this monster to keep growing, Nigeria will get consumed, not a flank. So to me, something tells me that they took us by surprise, but it
it may never happen again.
So what should be the focus now, looking ahead? Because, yes, like you've said, and they've been getting recommendations really so far with the Operation Deep Punch 2. What should be the focus?
You know, the focus now is, first of all, let's commend them that now, you know, let's commend Nigerians that somehow, somewhere, if we were having traitors amongst us and betrayers, all those are out, or they've been kicked out, or they have discovered themselves that supporting those insurgents or Boko Haram or terrorists will not do us any good. Moving forward, I think I'm seeing less of criticism of our military and security agencies. We should keep that up. Then we should encourage them to just keep punching till they get to the marrow. Like you said, they started from the surface, they have gone under the skin now, which is punch 2. Let them get to the marrow. We need to do something about the marrow.
Operation Total Knockout.
Then after that, honestly, let's come up with an approach on how we are going to take care of the next generation of Nigerians. All those within the age bracket of maybe from 15 years and above. Let a new generation of Nigerians come up with a different ideology, positive ideology, and an integrative one. And I hope that I will be among the living to enjoy it.
Of course, it will be there. Now, just before you go now, Nigerians have been looking forward to the Northeast Development Commission that the federal government talked about, that rehabilitation, rebuilding, reconstruction should be going on right now. You have visited that area of the country many times and recently. I wonder
as recent as 2 weeks ago.
Exactly. So I wonder how that is taking off now to make life normal for people in the Northeast.
To be honest, that commission, you know, a commission is a commission. Would set down responsibilities. But what I can just say is that Nigerians are beginning to gather their bits and pieces together. They've just discovered that we must live together. My secondary school classmate, Raemi Mutairu, you know, has told me that, Balazaka, I can't go to anywhere. My parents came from Ekiti as far back as 1940s. I was born here. I don't have anywhere. So I think it's very clear to us that we will continue to live together. And all we can do is just to continue to support one another. There is just no way about it. But for the commission, yes, it will take a while. So much destruction has taken place. Let me tell you, even with areas where things are, I'm sorry, I'm not going political, but as progressive as Lagos is, people are still criticizing. Then you're not talking about a given part of the country that was even low on education. You know, you don't have any originally, and you have all these destructions. It's as good as they are starting from ground zero. And for the first time, I will appreciate it if we can support one another. Then, finally, I will want a situation where we must have a census or record of everything about us. This must never happen. Monsters must not be allowed to be grown. Just imagine if that Sambisa enclave, you know, is taken and we decide to just make it a one permanent grazing area or a ranch.
That's the suggestion now.
Just imagine.
Indeed. Well, anything is possible once peace reigns in any country. So
exactly. It will be a good ranch for our cattle, I must tell you. Yeah.
And let it be known, just like the way you have Niger Delta, we know is domiciled with the prolific potential of crude oil. That can just be for the production of whatever, grazing or whatever.
All right. Thank you so much, Balazaka, for joining us on the program this morning. Thank you.